Welcome to PolicyCast. Today we have Jaspreet Singh with us to discuss the Digital Personal Data Protection Rules 2025, Building India's Privacy First Digital Ecosystem. India has taken a decisive step in operationalizing its data protection framework. Notified on the 13th of November 2025, the DPDP Rules operationalize the Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023, introducing the Data Protection Board, expanded data principal rights, and a phased compliance rollout leading up to full enforcement in May 2027. In this episode, we unpack how these rules are reshaping India's digital landscape and what it means for organizations and citizens. So, the first question to you, Jaspreet, what makes the DPDP Rules 2025 a landmark development for India's digital economy? And why is the Data Protection Board particularly significant?
Thank you, Simran. DPDPA couldn't have come at a better time with whatever is happening in the world around us from a technology advancement, whether it is cloud, whether it is AI perspective. DPDPA is designed to boost business innovation while maintaining strong consumer protections and trust. This act requires prompt notification of data breaches, makes data minimization mandatory, and it emphasizes accountability for all the digital services that you're targeting to any citizen. What is exemplary is the simplicity of the rules alongside the future ready regulations that actually avoid prescriptive technology mandates, and they set a new standard for data protection in dynamic markets such as India. The Data Protection Board of India is actually the cornerstone of this framework. It is India's first dedicated digital first regulatory authority for data protection. What makes it truly significant is unlike other authorities, it is entirely digital, from receiving complaints online to conducting inquiries and issuing orders. Every citizen can file these grievances online through the comfort of their home, office, wherever they have connectivity, track cases just using a mobile app, and receive decisions without ever visiting a physical office. And lo and behold, the board has extensive powers to investigate breaches, issue directions, and even impose penalties up to 250 crores for serious violations against the DPDP Rules 2025. And what is more important is that this is just not a regulatory oversight of privacy. It is a fundamental shift on how privacy will be enforced in India going forward.
Thank you, Jaspreet. Can you also now walk us through the phased compliance timeline and what it means for businesses?
So I think here is where we need to probably applaud the government in writing such a well-crafted DPDP rules, wherein what they've done is they've made technology and privacy a great leveler for everybody. The government has been pragmatic in recognizing that transitioning to such a comprehensive data protection regime takes time, and more so looking at the sector and the industry diversification in India. The rollout happens in actually three distinct phases. Phase 1, it's already begun from 13th of November, which says that you need to bring the institutional framework into effect, wherein the organizations would need to bring the frameworks, the data protection board definitions, what are the penalties, and how will this entire piece work from an administrative perspective. Just think of it as you're setting up a framework in place. Phase 2 is exactly 12 months from now, which is November of 2026, which talks about consent managers, registration for helping individuals manage and withdraw consent across platforms. So I can decide where I want to give consent, how do I withdraw consent. And only Indian companies who got a net worth of over 2 crores can register for this. This also ensures that the consent infrastructure is anchored in India, which is a huge boost for the India infrastructure companies. The last phase, which is probably the most significant phase, comes 18 months from now, probably around 30th of May 2027. This is when all the obligations of the act kick in place, or the rules kick in place, around breach protocols. If my data is breached, who do I inform? How soon do I inform? Data retention policies, children's protection, and data principal rights. From 13th of May 2027, there are no uh, grace periods after this. Organizations would need to completely comply for that date or face enforcement actions. What is critical is that a lot of organizations would need to start working today to become compliant to this entire piece, because this is like giving companies a runway for doing a lot of stuff that they need to be doing, whether it is doing data mapping, consent redesign, contract revisions, or breach response mechanisms.
Thank you. Speaking of data principal rights, my next question is, one of the most discussed aspects is the expansion of these data principal rights. So, what are the key rights individuals now have?
Great question. Actually, this is the entire reason why this act has been written and the government's been so keen to introduce this. This act and the rules truly empower citizens like you and me and every common individual on the street, who are called data principals. Data principals now have comprehensive rights which can be enforced, which did not exist or never existed on this scale before. That's where, for example, I have a right to access, right to summary of what my personal data is being processed, who all can access it, what is being used for. Just as an example, today, if you go to any e-commerce app, you can ask that e-commerce app a question saying, what data do you hold of Jaspreet? Who all has access to that information? What do you do with that data? How do you store that data? Second is the right to correction and erasure. Very, very simple. Again, going back to the same example, you can go back to the e-commerce app and say that, please delete either my data that is no longer needed, or please change this data because this data is inaccurate. So individual can demand corrections or deletions. Third is consent management is paramount as part of data principal rights. What is a consent? The consent is very, very specific. My willingness to share data with you, and it has to be free. It has to be specific. It has to be informed to an individual. It has to be unconditional, and it has to be given through clear affirmative action. You, Simran, in your life, you would have filled so many forms, right? And you would have seen that consent is probably the smallest font hidden between 14 terms and conditions. Now, no longer so. It has to be very, very clear, specific, free, and all the parameters that we spoke about. A lot of organizations, a lot of apps today have a consent mechanism, but they don't have a mechanism to withdraw consent. What if I don't want to get emails from a marketing organization or from a real estate or from a telecom organization or bank? One of the data principal rights that this gives to citizens is the right to withdraw consent. And in case I am not happy with the response that a citizen gets from an organization, I also have a 90-day grievance response time. More so, for children under 18 years of age, parental consent is mandatory and tracking or behavior monitoring is prohibited. Before DPDP came into place, these rights either existed through different sector regulatory laws or were not present at all. Now what they are doing is they have defined an unified, enforceable, and or the organization will face significant penalties.
Thank you, Jaspreet. Speaking of significant penalties, as empowering as this framework has been, organizations will end up facing some challenges. So what should their compliance roadmap look like? And what are these challenges?
Again, a great question, Simran. Can I ask you a question? Can you today raise your hand and say that you have full power over the entire data that exists on your laptop, on your mobile? Lo and behold, I know the answer will be no. So organizations now face a multi-dimensional compliance challenge, whether it is putting in place the consent infrastructure for standalone rules, mandate, plain language consent, exactly listing down what data is being collected for what purpose. For example, if you collect my data because I'm visiting your restaurant, you can't start sending me happy birthday, happy anniversary, emails, WhatsApp until unless you've taken consent. Consent which is buried in terms of services won't suffice now. Then for any CIO, CXO, CDO within an organization to understand where is the data lying within the organization is going to be a big challenge. Structured data which exists in databases is very easy. But what about data flowing around in emails, data flowing around on WhatsApp, data flowing around on SharePoints, in Excel files? How do you understand where is the data mapping happening? Documenting what data is being held. How did that data come to our organization? Where did it come from? Why do we need that data? Where is it being stored? And even cross-border flows if I am a multinational working in more than one country. Without doing all of this, you cannot demonstrate compliance. So, then storing that data, across encryption, masking, tokenization, putting security controls in place, and also the entire piece around doing the breach response within 72 hours is going to be very critical. I think I would recommend organizations take baby steps, start doing gap assessments, secure, executive sponsorship for this kind of program, because this will go back to the way organizations do business, and this could actually turn into cost of doing business, and then doing complete data mapping, prioritizing the remediation phase, and finally going into the entire implementation phase where you actually redesign notices, build your consent mechanism, and test your systems. I would also encourage organizations to do reviews and audits time by time on their entire privacy infrastructure. And this is not, I would repeat, a CIO or a CISO problem. The entire organization has to come together. You need to create a cross-functional team, because this touches every single touch point of an organization, be it legal, be it operations, HR, marketing, product. Anything that you touch within an organization which has data will have compliance issues. This is not a silo IT problem.
Thank you for those insights, Jaspreet. My last question to you is, what's one key message for organizations and citizens like myself that we should bear in mind as we move forward towards May 2027?
Again, a very interesting question. I'll probably then break the answer into two pieces. Let me first talk about citizens. For citizens, let's understand that now we have actually real enforceable rights over my own personal data. So we should not hesitate to exercise them. If I'm not sure on where my data is being used, how is it being stored, we now have the option of asking those questions. And the Data Protection Board now exists to complement us and give us rights around digital grievance, and also help file complaints as and when needed, right? From an organization perspective, I think given whatever is happening around the digital economy, and India is the forefront of the global digital infrastructure, right? This DPDP framework is not about compliance. It's about building trust in India's digital economy. The organization should look at it as a very strategic opportunity. Organizations that will adopt privacy in the way they do business will actually be able to differentiate themselves in the market, because consumers will value this privacy, and the organizations will then earn royalty on this from a brand image perspective. So I think simply put that this is a great runway for India to segue into our dreams of a Viksit Bharat in 2047, because if this is implemented effectively, it ensures that it serves every citizen of the country.
Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode. We explored how the DPDP Rules 2025 are shaping India's data protection landscape, from the Data Protection Board to expanded citizen rights and the phased compliance journey towards May 2027. A big thank you to you, Jaspreet, for sharing those sharp insights and helping us navigate the nuances of this transformative framework. Coming soon would be our next episode for more expert conversations on data governance, emerging technologies, and business resilience. Signing off until next time.